Good afternoon and welcome to today's session on how to solve 13 serious SME-IT problems by Mr. Vishal Shah. I am Prasanna, co-host of the event today. Let me introduce today's presenter, Mr. Vishal Shah, CEO and co-founder of Cinesoft Technologies. He has over 18 years of experience and expertise of IT industry. He is known as seasoned technology stalwart, an inventor of specific patented technologies, a writer, a serial entrepreneur, an investor, and most importantly, a go-to guide for MSMEs. It is a unique webinar concept specially designed for SME owners and IT professionals. Vishal sir will narrate 13 serious problems faced by most SMEs. He will present a unique design thinking approach to how to solve them. This will also include live demonstration of the effective solutions. If you have any question while you watch this demonstration, kindly write in the question and answer tab in the bottom of your Zoom login. The panel will take up the question at the end of the session. Alternatively, in case you want to ask any question in the end of the session, you may please raise your hand. We shall activate your microphone to ask the question. Vishal sir, can you please take it ahead from here?
Yeah, thank you, Prasanna, for the introduction. Good afternoon, all. We are meeting after a long time, and this is our repeat webinar. Of course, it's a live webinar, so it is not, the content will not be the same as last time. We would have added some more points to it. So basically, the topic today, which we are going to discuss, is 13 serious MSME IT problems. So why IT is so important for MSMEs? Let me tell you, for MSMEs, IT is everything, everywhere in its operations. In accounts, IT is there. When they communicate with the world through email, IT is there. When they use internet for business development or for research, IT is there. When they have some applications like AutoCAD, SolidWorks, their designs, drawings, intellectual property get digitalized, and IT is there. So IT is everywhere in an MSME. And nowadays, when MSME, when they want to supply to a large enterprise or government, they have to get empaneled. And there are certain IT criteria they have to fulfill in order to get empaneled for the same. So we thought that this is a very, very relevant topic, and we listed 13 serious problems which MSMEs face while they adopt IT or while they manage IT. And we would not only talk about the problems, we will talk about the solutions also. And we will find out how we can actually apply a good design thinking approach to solve each and every problem. So today we are going to discuss 13 such serious problems, which I would assume that every attendee would resonate and would find that particular problem, somewhere in past or present faced in their organization. So before we move to the next slide, I request Prasanna to launch the poll. Let us understand the attendee profile so that I can make it more relevant. So please give your inputs to this poll. It will help us. So as we see the poll results, 38% of the attendees are owner or custodian of enterprise data. 44% of attendees are IT professionals managing SME-IT infrastructure. And 19% are system integrators or IT consultants who help MSME in dealing with their IT matters. So we have a very, very relevant audience here, and we would like to go further on the Next slide. So I have categorized these 13 problems in 3 different categories. The first category of the problem is business continuity loss. Many a times there is some malfunction in IT or there is some issue in IT which might lead to loss of business continuity. Inside the loss of business continuity, there could be various problems. And there are 5 such problems we have identified that scatteredness of the data might lead to loss of business continuity because we are not able to back up all the data properly if it is scattered on multiple devices. Intentional data deletion, which is a part of insider's threat, if it happens, the organization might face loss of business continuity. A ransomware attack or a ransomware attack on 0-day might impact the data availability of the organization and might result in business continuity loss. Similarly, disaster or hardware failure might also result in loss of business continuity. And loss of laptop asset. Now, a lot of data is there on the laptop assets because laptops are very extensively used in the enterprise environment. If something happens to the laptop and it is not backed up regularly, there might be loss of business continuity. Another important category of the problem is competitive exploitation. Because there is a loophole in IT or because there is a lacuna in IT deployment or IT infrastructure, it might lead to competitive exploitation of the organization. It might lead to leakage of some very confidential design, drawing, or data, or some tender bid or customer information. It could be anything. And it can happen over a data theft through USB port, data theft over email attachment or blind carbon copy. And it can also happen through data theft over internet. Any of your employee might just upload some confidential information on personal Google Drive and it's gone. So other 3 problems are related to competitive exploitation. And the third category of these problems are IT standardization. Many a times MSMEs have adopted IT just to cope with the growth they have. And while doing so, they have not done it with a proper plan. We have done it in the piecemeal. They have done it over a period of time. And that might lack standardization of IT. And that might create certain problems like they require remote application access and they might use some free tool for remote application access and they are the victim of some hacking or ransomware. They may not be ready with BYOD environment where employees are using their own individual device and there might be a risk of data leakage. They might have same problem for work from home kind of arrangements. They might have same problem for productivity monitoring. If they don't have control on their IT, productivity is difficult to monitor. As well as every enterprise would like to have an IT policy, just like HR policy and any other policy. IT policy in the organization and enforcement of the IT policy could also be a problem if IT standardization is lacking. So these are the 13 problems which we are going to discuss and we are going to understand the solutions, how can we solve these problems basically. So before we move to the first problem, I request Prasanna to launch the poll. So basically, we were supposed to discuss the data scatteredness as a problem. So data scatteredness is something where you provide for a central storage location, either on cloud or on premise, and you advise your users to save the data on that particular central storage. What happens here is if users follow your instructions, your data is stored on basically central storage. If users do not follow your instructions, that they end up storing the data on their individual computer systems also. So it is very, very democratic. It is very, very voluntary. So you need users who follow your instructions as an IT professional, then only your data is centralized. But your management expects you to centralize the data so that you have proper backup of your data and so that you do not lose business continuity. So this is where the problem lies. When user is having a choice to store the data either on central location or on his own computer, you are not sure what the user will do. And that is where we identify the concept of autocratic centralization. And this can be achieved by many device hardening solutions. So design thinking here is, let us not give choice to the user so that he has a choice to save the data on local computer. User is not given the choice. So let's say user is saving an AutoCAD file or a Word file. Whenever he opens a save dialog box, the options given to him or her to store the data as storage destination is only the central location, either on cloud or on premises. And when we achieve this, we have actually overcome the problem of democratic centralization. We have made it autocratic. We have diverted the user to save the data where we want, and that is called autocratic centralization. And as the poll result suggests, 85% of the people believe that if they are given an autocratic centralization kind of tool, that will solve the problem of data scatteredness. And let me tell you, solving the problem of data scatteredness eases out on the backup strategy. So when your data is scattered on multiple devices, you have to take backup of multiple devices. But when you are sure that your data is not scattered, your data is not scattered and your data is stored only on the central location, it is very easy to take the backup of a central location and preserve the data. And we can make sure that data is not scattered, hence data is properly taken care of, and hence business continuity is ensured. Another problem which we want to see is intentional deletion of the data. See, many a times users delete the data out of their some human resource problems, and sometimes users are mischievous and they enjoy the show by deleting the data. Sometimes people have such weird habits. When user intentionally deletes the data, organization should be capable of recovering the data immediately. Now, what are the traditional solutions? You have data recovery solution which can recover the data, deleted data. But the problem is when the user deletes with the shift delete data and we want to run the data recovery software, it takes long time and business cannot continue during that time. Another problem is, if we have already recovered the deleted data by some tool, but at the same time, if we don't know who has done that, there is a possibility that the same person would do it again and again, and it will put us in that bad situation again. In order to recover the data which is shift deleted or permanently deleted, as well as in order to identify who has deleted the data, there are certain technologies, and one of them is active recycle bin. So at the network level, the data which is shift deleted by the user from the network folders is actually captured in that active recycle bin. And when organization realizes that somebody has intentionally deleted the data, They can go to that active recycle bin, which is not accessible to the users. They can go to that particular recycle bin, recover the data, and this active recycle bin will also give a report that who has deleted the data. So intentional deletion of data has a serious impact on the business continuity of the organization, and every organization should have a solution to make sure that they can recover the deleted data as well as they can identify who has deleted the data. And for that, you can rely on active recycle bin solutions. Such solutions are available in many hardware systems. Blackbox is one of them, which also offers this kind of solution. Prasanna, I request you to launch a poll pertaining to this particular slide, please. So as we see on the poll result, basically intentional deletion of the data is identified as a serious problem by 96% of the attendees. So always look for such technology which can recover the data immediately without any downtime when the data is strip deleted. And at the same time, also have a technology or invest in a technology which can actually identify who has deleted the data. Now we will move to the next point. Ransomware attack. So ransomware attack is very well a known problem to everyone. And for that, most of the organizations are very conscious, and they also invest in firewall and antivirus to protect their business continuity from ransomware attack. But there is a problem, and that problem I would suggest is known as zero-day problem. So when a new ransomware or virus is launched, most of the times it is not identified by most of the firewalls and antiviruses. And the window during which these firewalls and antivirus update their virus definitions or ransomware definitions with the newly launched ransomware, that window, maybe 1 day, 2 days, 5 days, is known as 0-day. And during this 0-day, even if the organization has provided for all protection in terms of firewall and antivirus, it may be affected by ransomware. So organization always needs a plan B. And that plan B could be if the firewall or a ransomware fails, they should be able to recover their data. And that is where we consider the vault and workspace technology, which is also known as primary and hidden chamber technology. You should have this technology. What happens here, all your data is stored in the primary chamber. There is a hidden chamber which is not accessible over network. And this hidden chamber has a service which copies the data from primary chamber. And when the hidden chamber copies the data from primary chamber, it disconnects the primary chamber from hidden chamber. And that is how the data, while it is being copied from primary chamber to hidden chamber, is not accessible over network. And once the data is copied, hidden chamber disconnects itself from primary chamber. So when users are using primary chamber over network, they don't have access or connection to hidden chamber. So even if ransomware strikes the primary chamber, you have all option to go to the hidden chamber and get your data back, and that hidden chamber might be containing the data of yesterday. So at the most you might lose data of one day, which may not be very big impact on the organization's business continuity. So I would conclude this entire part of ransomware attack as firewall and antivirus are like vaccines. You know, you take the vaccine and you hope that you will not catch up with the disease. At the same time, when you catch up with the disease, vaccine will not be helpful as a medicine. You need actual medicine to recover from the disease. And where this kind of technology can help you recover from whatever you have suffered. And so you should look for primary and hidden chamber. Our technology black box includes this very well, and you can benefit from that. Prasanna, can I request you to launch the poll, please? So as we see on the screen, 83% of the attendees believe that plan B to recover data after ransomware attack is a critical, is very critical. So now we will move next to the next problem, fourth problem, which is disaster or hardware failure. So when your hardware fails, your server hardware fails, you need the backup. And when disaster happens, and if your backup is taken in the same premise, many organizations have a policy that they take the backup on some other computer or NAS device in the same network, in the same place. But when disaster happens, maybe both the hardware, one which is having data, another which is having backup, might be destroyed, and you might end up losing the data. So it is always recommended that you should have off-premise backup, and that off-premise backup could be on cloud or it could be on VPN, but it has to be off your premise. So in case there is a disaster or a hardware failure, you can very well recover the data from the off-premise location, which could be cloud or private data center, and you can very well recover the data. So it is a must solution. If you have not yet invested in it, you should invest in that. Your data has to be uploaded on cloud or on any other private data center in encrypted format and compressed format, so that in case you are a victim of disaster or you face hardware failure, you can recover the data and ensure your business continuity. Prasanna, can we launch the poll, please? So as we see the poll results, 70% of the people believe that business continuity can be maintained in disaster or hardware situation by either cloud backup or hardware redundancy. And 30% believe that cloud backup is an easier way of doing it. Yeah, thank you for that. We'll move to the fifth problem, which is a loss of the laptop. Nowadays, a lot of our people are remote users or traveling users, and they carry your software, application, data on the laptop. Now, the biggest problem most of the SMEs face is the backup of the laptops. These laptops are never available for the backup. Whenever an IT team wants to back up the data, most of the times the users of the laptop are too busy to spare the laptop for the backup. And this is a situation everywhere. So there has to be a solution which takes the automatic backup. So I have basically a design thinking approach to that. So inside the laptop, we can force the user to save the data in a specific drive or in a specific folder only. And then we can have one good cloud backup system installed on that particular laptop. And that cloud backup system should not be manageable by the user. User cannot uninstall or user cannot change any configuration. Once you have that cloud backup system inside your laptop, that backup will automatically happen. And when the backup happens, you should also have an access to the report where it tells you whether that backup happened or whether that backup did not happen for some reason. So every SME has to ensure that its laptops are properly backed up. They are backed up at the central location, and they are actually all the backup status is reported regularly, and they have access to those reports. So in case they find any discrepancy, they can take corrective actions and don't end up in the losing the data. So this is the fifth problem which we think that, by having a good cloud backup solution, you can do it. Blackbox is one of the solutions which also offers cloud backup in single agent. Prasanna, can we launch a poll about this problem before we move to next problem? Yeah, I think Prasanna, there is a wrong poll. You can stop the poll. We will move to the next slide. Please stop the poll. Yeah, I think the poll was related to this slide. So now data theft over USB is another problem. Most of the enterprises, they don't have a control on USB drive for one reason, because sometimes USB is required for genuine purpose. USB is required for signing the digital signatures. USB is required for using some hardware dongles, which are software authentication dongles. And USB is also required for printer, keyboard, mouse, etc. So it is high time MSMEs have better control on USB port. So I have a good suggestion for that. So MSME can actually categorize all the users in 3 different categories. First category, who need only keyboard, mouse kind of devices, who do not need any other USB access. Another category is those who actually require USB access in order to invert the data. Many a times we have photographs which are captured by the employees and they want to actually upload it on the organization's network, and they bring those photographs on USB. There might be, a vendor who is sending some design and we have to invert that design, and that vendor has sent that design by USB. So inverting the data from USB is a genuine business need. So we can categorize another category of the users who require inverting of the data only. And the third category could be who require USB access for everything. They can invert, they can outward also. And these users could be very few in numbers. So if organization has a solution which makes sure that majority of the users have access to keyboard, mouse, printer, but they don't have access to any mass storage device. Other level, the organization can have another policy where user can have access to USB, but he can only invert the data, he cannot outward the data. So for these two categories, organization does not have to really monitor these particular users because they know that they can at the most invert the data, they cannot outward the data. And rest of the very few users, organization can allow them to access data, take the data out on the USB, but there is a report every time he uses the USB to take the data, there is a report sent to his manager or supervisor. And this could be very few in number of users. So we can apply minimum monitoring, maximum control kind of strategy. So this is something which is for every organization faces the problem of data leakage over USB. And sometimes they cannot control it because there is a genuine business need of inverting the data from USB or using digital signature or using some software dongle on USB. And that's how they have to allow the USB access. They cannot disable the USB access. And that's how they are vulnerable to data leakage through a USB. So by having these three level of policies and proper appropriate tool, organization can very easily deal with the data leakage over USB. Prasanna, can we launch the poll, please? Please launch the USB wala poll. So here, majority of the users are in agreement with these three types of policy, where USB can be given access only over keyboard, mouse, or non-mass storage device. USB can also be accessed over inward type of use case only. And USB can be given access to very few users for outward type of use cases. But at the same time, report is given, so data leakage is prohibited. Now we'll move to the next part. Data theft over email attachment. This is the most difficult thing, you know. Most of the organizations use Gmail or O365 or GoDaddy kind of email systems. Users access these emails over mobile phone, over their desktop, over their laptops, and many a times through the webmail in the browser. And if data leakage is a concern, users can very easily leak IPR designs, drawings, whatever, over email attachment or over blind carbon copy. So most of the times these email servers are designed to give very good performance on the email communication, email search. But when it is about security or data leakage prevention over email, they lack vigilance policies. So here you can have you can add another layer of email distribution system, which takes the email from your email host like Google, Outlook, whatever, and then applies the policy. And you can have policy similar to USB port. I will explain. You can divide your users in different categories. First categories of the users, you can define that they can send emails only internally in the organization, so you don't have to monitor it. So if you have a tool which can enforce such a policy, you don't have to monitor those users and you are nullifying the risk of data leakage. Another category of the users, they can send emails, but they can send emails to specific parties only, 50, 100, 200 email IDs. In that case, you can select to whom they can send emails, and you can make sure that you don't have to monitor them. At the same time, you can make sure that they are not able to leak the data over email. Third category could be they can send emails to anybody in the world, but the copy should be sent to the supervisor. Here, if they do anything for the first time, they'll be caught for the first time. Fourth category could be they can send emails, but they will go to the recipient only if it is approved by the manager. So this can also have a workflow in the email, and it can make sure that you can have a policy so that your emails are not used or misused to leak your own data. Similarly, you can define which users can send blind carbon copy and which users cannot send blind carbon copy. And those who can send blind carbon copy, what they are sending in the blind carbon copy and whom they are sending in the blind carbon copy can also be recorded, and that can also be reported. So basically, you can avoid data theft over email attachment by having a layer of email distribution system which enforces the policy the way you want. And there are many ready-made such systems in terms of mail distribution system. Blackbox is one of them. It also integrates such mail distribution system. So you can have better control on your email system so that your users cannot misuse your emails for basically leaking or stealing the data from the organization. Prasanna, can we launch a poll? So as we can see on the screen, majority of the people believe that email attachment and blind carbon copy should be controlled to basically avoid any data leakage over email attachments. We'll move to the next slide, which is the 8th problem. Data theft over internet. Now, this is a very serious problem. Most of the times when we want to prevent data theft over internet, we want to control the internet which is given to the users. Users use internet for compliance, for filing, for research, for business development, and many other purposes. So internet is actually a resource. When we want to control them using internet, we have a tool we all know, firewall. So we deploy firewall and then we try to control the users from using the internet or misusing the internet so that they can use the internet only for the productive things and they cannot use the internet for leaking or stealing the data from the organization. Now there is a challenge. Nowadays, mobile hotspot can be a very handy resource to the internet. So I'm sitting in the office, I have a firewall network, but at the same time, if I connect my laptop or desktop over mobile hotspot, I'm completely away from my firewall, and whatever my organization has designed for me as a policy is just null and void. So this is a serious problem, how you can solve this problem. So instead of having a firewall network, which of course is desirable, at the same time, you have to control the users while they are out of the firewall network, like they are working remotely, they are at home, they are traveling, or they are connecting to hotspot sitting in the office to bypass the firewall network. How can you solve this? So there are an agent-based email controls. So agent is installed and it will have two things in terms of policy. One, while the user is connecting the internet, which websites he can connect to. So you can have a list of safe websites, okay, like your banker's website, GST websites, income tax websites, logistics websites, whatever number of websites you have, which you think that cannot be misused to steal the data from the organization, you can add to it. And another thing in the policy is whatever is not included in that particular list, when user wants to access that, user will not have access to the data, so that user cannot steal the data. So let's understand a use case. Let's say we all know that Google Drive can be used to leak the data or steal the data. So you have created a list for the users which does not include Google Drive because you believe that Google Drive can be misused. Now let's say a customer calls the user and tells him that why don't you download something from Google Drive or Dropbox? Now you have not given access to the user either in your firewall or in the agent which is installed on his computer, so he cannot access Google Drive. Now he has to access Google Drive to actually perform his duty. It's a genuine business requirement. So in that case, you can deploy certain tools. They're called Magic Browser or some other browser, or maybe in black box we call it as happy hours. User can log on to that in the same session, and user can go to any website which is not allowed to him by the organization. In that case, the data will be isolated. He will not have access to organization's data. So you can download anything what he wants, but he cannot upload anything what he wants. So this is how it can be a good solution. But I really believe that the SMEs have to consider this internet as a risk. If they believe that they have a firewall and they have mitigated that risk, they are in false impression. Basically, user can access hotspot and he can take your data. So you need slightly advanced level of such policies, and our technology black box, which has happy hours, can very well do it. Yeah, Prasanna, can we launch the poll? So as you see the poll results, majority of the people believe that there must be a balance between data leakage prevention policy and freedom of the users to use internet for research and business development. You can establish such balance by having such strategy that you have your list where user can go and serve that website, do his work with access to your data, and you have rest of the websites which are accessed by the user, your data is isolated. So we'll move to the next problem. That is remote application access. Now, most of the times organizations use, ERP applications, CRM applications, which they want their traveling users or remote users to access. So most of the times they use, very primitive level, they use TeamViewer and AnyDesk kind of things. Sometimes they use terminal server and remote desktop to give access to their applications. So most of the times, such practices invite a lot of problems. Number one, data leakage problem. Number two, vulnerabilities. So most of the times we have seen that ransomware enters through a backdoor of remote access, and most of the remote access tools are compromised by ransomware makers, and they use remote access tools to enter the network. So how to solve that? So in my advice, basically, you should do one thing where application virtualization should be tried. So most of the times remote desktop and terminal server are very hardware intensive. Most of the times AnyDesk and TeamViewer are very internet bandwidth intensive. So you need something which actually does not use so much of bandwidth and hardware. And at the same time, you can very well allow access of your remote of your application remotely to the user. And for that, I suggest application virtualization. So when you have application virtualization, I'm not talking about desktop virtualization or server virtualization. I'm talking about application virtualization. So the moment you deploy application virtualization for your Tally or for your ERP or for your CRM, you can have an access to this virtualized application on user's remote computer using virtual private network, and that makes it foolproof. So when user accesses it through virtual private network, it is not vulnerable because it does not use remote desktop protocol. It is not very easily crackable, and application virtualization is very light and it is very fast, so it does not require so much of bandwidth. So there are many application virtualization technologies, costly to cheapest. You can try that. Our technology, black box AAA, access application anywhere, is one of that. You can try that. But yes, if you have a requirement to give access of the application remotely, you cannot really compromise it by remote desktop. It is hardware intensive and it is vulnerable. Yeah, Prasanna, can we launch the poll? So as we see on the poll results, we have 65% want it to be easy. Remote access application should be easy. 80% want it to be secured, 60% fast, and 55% cost effective. So yes, there are solutions and you can very well work on it. Yeah, Prasanna, you can stop sharing the poll. Yeah, we will move to the next slide, which is BYOD environment. See, many a times as an MSME, we cannot afford to give out company laptops to the users, and we sometimes rely on the users to access their own computers, desktops, laptops while they work remotely. Now, here there are three challenges. First, data leakage possibilities. Two, freedom of the users to use that particular laptop for personal use. And three, basically, is backup of the data. Now, the first challenge is data leakage. You want to apply the policy. When you try to apply the policy on users' computers, user will not be able to freely use his computer for personal reasons, for personal purpose. And whatever data you want to back up, maybe by putting a backup agent or cloud backup agent, users' personal data will also be backed up, which is not liked by the users, and users might not agree to it. So what we would like to suggest here, that you can, on a user's laptop or desktop, you can have two profiles. In Windows, you can have multiple profiles. So first profile, you reserve it for your company work, and another profile let user work on it for his personal. While the user is inside the company work profile, all the policies are applied and the data is also backed up, whichever pertains to company's data. And you can make sure that in that profile, user works on a specific folder, or user is forced to work on a specific folder. So by doing so, the backup will only happen through the professional work profile. The policies will only apply in professional work, and user can freely use his personal profile. So this is very good suggestion for BYOD environment. You can create two profile, and there are such ready-made software which can be installed and they can create two different profiles. On one profile, you can harden it. Another profile, you can keep it free. And on the one profile which is hardened, all the policies are applied, as well as the backup also happens and the report is also given. So black box is one of them. You can have black box duo in case you have this, and there are many other products available. So we'll launch a poll for this particular slide, Prasanna. So majority of the attendees agree that automatic data of only enterprise data should be done in BYOD environment. Data leakage prevention policy should be applied only in the work profile, and freedom to use personal device should not be compromised. So the solution I have suggested solves all these three criteria. Prasanna, you can stop sharing the poll. Now work from home. Now these three problems are derived from the previous problems. So in work from home profile, you should have, if it is a company given laptop, you need to apply the policy on that company given laptop while user is out of your domain network or when user is out of your virtual private network. In work from home, you need to ensure that users backup of the data happens and user has a secured application and file access. Otherwise, when users work from home, it might be a big risk on your network and on your data in terms of ransomware attack, or in terms of data theft, or in terms of bandwidth, extensive bandwidth usage. So we suggest blind VPN technology, where user does not need to know VPN credential, just one click and VPN is connected. You can also make use of good remote access applications so that users don't use so much of bandwidth at work from home. People don't have very good bandwidth at the work. They have broadband, and that is also shared for the TV and for Amazon Prime and whatnot. So many a times of bandwidth availability for the work is very less. User can also have automatic backup without them, being prompted or they have to take any actions. And organization can also have a report of those backup statuses, and they can find out if there is any problem, they can solve that problem. Next is about productivity monitoring. See, when users are working away or when you are having a lot of expensive software on which users work, you want to monitor that productivity. So in that case, there are many solutions available which are screen capture solutions. So they capture the screen of the user system. They capture many details of the user system, what applications the user is using, how much time he is using each application. And you can randomly check those things and you can actually monitor the productivity of the users. And the last problem is enforcement of standard IT policy. You need to enforce the policy, which folder can be accessed by which user can access USB, what are the email rights of the user, what are the internet rights of the users, what if users delete the data, what happens, what if the backup of the laptop, how backup of the laptop has to happen. All these standard IT policies make standard IT environment. So the biggest problems are high licensing costs. When we have all standard IT policies, you have to spend a lot of money on licensing of the software. It is also very complex to integrate because there are so many problems to be solved and you need so many systems to be integrated. It requires hardware and software solutions to be bought. It makes it more expensive. And you need to also cover your remote users under your policy. So when user is out of your domain, you need some agent-based systems which can actually harden the user's device and continue the policies. So basically, this is enforcement of standard IT policy is a problem with every MSME. And for that, there are IT in a box solutions. You just deploy that IT in a box solutions with agent, and it will enforce all your standard IT policies. It will give you better control on your IT so that your data is not vulnerable to leakage, and hence you are not vulnerable to competitive exploitation. It will make sure that your data is not very prone to loss, and hence your business continuity is ensured. And it will also have very good compliance reports, so that in case your vendor or your customer wants you to empanel by going through certain compliance audits, you can successfully fulfill those audit requirements also. So this is all about 13 different problems, which I think MSMEs should never ignore and should invest in resolving them. And these problems we have taken in our design thinking of the black box also, and black box solves all these problems. So black box is also a one-stop solution which can solve all these problems in one go, or you can have multiple systems you can integrate and you can solve the problems. So the main point is you should be conscious about these problems and you should do something to solve those problems in order to maintain your business continuity and in order to avoid any competitive exploitation. So this is all from my side. We can open the forum for any discussions or any questions. So I think we have completed dot on time. So we can take 5-10 more minutes for the question answers. So either you can write down your question in the question and answer palette. I will answer them. Or in case you want to ask anything, you can request, you can raise your hand, we will unmute you and you can ask your question. So we have one question. How do one do sizing of the appliance? Okay. Yeah, Mr. Chauhan, the sizing of the appliance, yes, it depends on basically three things. One, how many users you have. Two, what is the magnitude of the data. So, and third is how much bandwidth, how scattered your users are. So first is about how many number of users. That will tell you what kind of processor required for that kind of device. Second is magnitude of your data. So how much data, 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, 4 terabyte, that will decide on the storage part of your appliance. And third, bandwidth. You can find out if your users are centralized at one location or multiple locations, or they are scattered across the locations. That will define how much bandwidth you will require to be given on that particular appliance and how much bandwidth that appliance should handle. So these are the three criteria by which you can make sure that how you size your device. Yeah, we have another question, which is, where is another question? I think Mr. Mondal has asked in the chat, what is IT in a box solution? I prefer if you can ask the question in the question answer, so for the benefit of every other attendee, but I will answer this question. So IT in a box solution is something which is single hardware, single software solution, which runs particular services. It runs file server, firewall, mail distribution system, endpoint control, storage part, backup system, domain controller, firewall. So such many services are run on one single device instead of deploying multiple devices. And that is called IT in a box solution. And IT in a box solution is basically simpler to use. It has less number of features from a full-fledged IT system, but it is very simple to use. It is cost effective. And because it is simple, you don't need very highly professional IT talent to manage it. Is this, another question is from Mr. Chauhan, is this solution one-time investment or it's subscription model? So this solution is available on both the models. You can have one-time investment and then pay the maintenance charges for next 5 years. That is one way you can avail this solution. Another solution is you can take it on rental, or you can subscribe to the cloud deployment, and you can pay on per user per year kind of subscription charges. Yeah, we can take one or two more questions, then we can conclude. Yeah. The question is from Mr. Chauhan, are you 100% channel oriented company? No, we are not 100% channel oriented company. We sell directly as well as we sell through the channel partners. How do we start the engagement? Yeah, Prasanna, can you please introduce the concerned partner account manager to Mr. Chauhan? It will help them. So we have a partner account team, partner account portal also, and they will further guide you on this engagement. We can conclude if there is no more question. Prasanna? Yeah, we have two more questions just. Is this make in India? Yes, it is make in India. Of course, it depends on imported parts, but yes, it is completely made in India. How about support once subscribed? There are 3 levels of support. One is 10 to 6 support, which is a remote support. Another support is 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. support. Again, it is a remote support. And third is 24/7 support. Once it is subscribed, and in case you want on-site support, it is done on chargeable basis. Yeah, Prasanna, you can start concluding. If there is any question, I will take it up.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for such an insightful and beneficial session for all of us. I request everyone to fill the form which you will get at the end of the session to give us your valuable feedback. We also have Mr. Sudhir Chaube, who looks after the commercial aspect of our organization. Sudhir sir, I request you to give the concluding remarks for this event.
Yes, Prasanna, thank you, Vishalji, for conducting this session. And the participants have shown interest in the question session. We would be interested in helping them on all the topics like Mr. Chauhan was having. You can get connected to our local persons at all the locations, whether Mumbai, Delhi, Pune, and we would be happy to assist you. For this session, Vishalji, special thanks to you for finding some time and addressing our audience. Thank you once again, all the participants.
Thank you very much. Thank you.